You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis, Wright.
Car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with The Attorneys of Hollis Wright.
Hello and welcome to The Attorneys. I'm Art Franklin. Today we're giving you something very rare and important. We're giving you an inside look at the circuit civil court system. That is the largest trial court system in Jefferson County. But first, we got this reminder for you. We want to let you know that attorneys at Hollis Wright are standing by right now. All you got to do is scan that QR code or call 1-844-LAW-TALK for a free and confidential call with one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright right now. Glad to have a very good friend of ours joining us here on the show. This is Reginald Jeter, Honorable Judge Reginald Jeter. Thanks for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
And of course, my buddy here.
Glad to have you.
Always.
How are you?
Good to see you. It's
Good
been
to see
a
you.
while.
All right, so not every day do we get a judge on the show.
know.
I'm
That's
fired up
good.
about this.
Yeah.
I was talking with Judge Jeter before we kind of got started just a little bit about the fact he's been on the bench 9 years and handling a lot of the civil cases over in Bessemer in the circuit court. Judge Jeter, first of all, welcome for being, thank you really for being on. We do appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, talk to us just a little bit about your background, first of all, and kind of how you made the election and checked the box and said, I want to be a judge. Because you know what? A lot of us as lawyers don't ever check that box.
Right.
And some people do because they've got a calling. And I just want to kind of hear your story.
So I'm glad I did check the box, but I practiced for approximately 12 years prior to taking the bench. I had a defense background. I worked at a law firm here locally, Haskell, Slaughter, Young, and Redeker. Was an associate there, then also became a partner. And I actually did insurance defense, labor and employment, all type of litigation, complex litigation, and worked there approximately 12 years. I then left there and went to Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company, where I was an in-house counsel and did complex litigation. And I worked there approximately 2 years before I decided to run for office. So I'm in a seat where my mentor, Judge Eugene Varon, actually presided. And so once he retired, I spoke with him and decided to make the move to seek his seat upon retirement. And so I was successful in doing that and have enjoyed my time in that office.
You know, a lot of, and I mentioned tongue-in-cheek about checking the box, but let me tell you something, like, it's a calling for people that want to sit on our bench. And it takes courage to be able to do that, because it's really a different style of practice of law than what I'm doing right now and what Judge was doing. And so all I can say is I have mad respect for people that check that box and decide to undertake that calling, and Judge Jeter is one of the good ones doing it.
And actually has a passion for it and is a good guy along the way as well. So let's take us inside the circuit civil court. What kind of cases come before you on the bench?
So the great thing about being a circuit civil court judge is that you hear all types of cases. My docket on any given day, I can hear cases, you know, a case where there's no damages, but a person who their neighbor built a fence and it encroached upon their property, or, you know, someone who had a breach of contract case with someone, all the way up to someone who is suing for wrongful death and are seeking multi-million dollars, or product liability cases, and everything in between. So it's a very varied court where we hear diverse areas of law. The good thing about circuit civil court, we have exclusive jurisdiction over any cases involving damages that exceed $20,000, and there's no limit. So you can kind of get an idea of the types of cases that we can hear, from your cases seeking only $20,000 all the way up to multi-million dollar cases.
Do you think it was helpful to have the background doing litigation-based work for the time that you were, and taking that to the bench, regardless of what side of the bar you were on? Right. Having that background, does that help in context give you a broader exposure when you get to the bench of how to have a philosophy, if you will, dealing with litigation matters?
Oh, absolutely, because you understand what the attorneys are going through. You understand the pre-trial issues that will occur. And so you're able to work with the attorneys in order to get that done. I think that's very helpful to attorneys because you can make a decision to help them to determine whether or not they're going to settle a case or they're going to go to trial. And also, once you get into trial, being able to have that background and you're making decisions on legal issues about what's going to be admitted, who's going to testify, what they're going to testify about, having the background in litigation and having done that on the other side, it gives you that greater opportunity to make a decision based upon the law and the facts that are before you.
I've always thought that having some level of context in what I do for a living, having a judge that has gone through that helps give them the context to kind of understand the process that we go through, and I think it helps round judges in some ways. Not every judge has that, and that's okay, but it's something that we always are looking at.
And to that end, Josh, and for the viewers at home as they think about the judge and the attorney, what's that relationship like between the attorney and the judge when you're dealing with these cases?
Yeah, and we both can probably handle that. I mean, obviously, it's complete respect to the court and deference to the court. But most judges, especially in Jefferson County, are going to allow you to try your case within the bounds that we all know that we have to follow. And if we try and get out of those bounds, the judges are going to make sure we get back in those bounds. And that's just part of the process. But we're going to do the things that we're allowed to do to be able to represent our clients. We have a duty as lawyers to aggressively represent our clients, but also to do it with respect to the judges within the bounds that are set by the judges and our decorum in court.
Correct. And it makes our jobs a lot easier when you have experienced lawyers that come into your courtroom because they understand those boundaries. And so even though they may try to skirt them, they understand and they know when am I going too far? And it makes the job as a judge easier, and it makes the trial process smoother, which also helps the jurors because the jurors are not getting, bogged down and listening to objections and having to go out of the courtroom because you have less of that when you have an experienced attorney who knows the limitations of the courtroom, and you have less of those issues.
People don't really realize this. A lot of the issues that could create controversy in front of a jury are resolved, thanks to judges, are resolved before you even get to opening argument.
Right.
And a lot of the evidence that you're going to present is stipulated to between the parties. A lot of the authenticity is managed if you have two good lawyers before you ever get there, making the judge's job easier, but also making the lawyer's job easier. And then it becomes about, hey, let's present our respective claims in front of an objective group of jurors and allow them to make a rational decision based on the facts and circumstances and the law, and then let the chips fall where they may. And so a lot of the controversy that you see on TV really doesn't happen in the courtroom if the lawyers do a good job on the front end getting their case prepared.
Yeah. I know we're about to take a break. Go ahead.
One thing I was going to ask before we do take a break is a lot of people have heard, Bessemer is a component of Jefferson County, and then there's the Jefferson County division in Jefferson County.
Right.
But how does that break down? Because you're on the Bessemer side, and so there is a breakdown, though, based on where circumstances happen, whether the case can be filed in Bessemer or Jefferson County. Is that fair?
That's correct. And so we're all part of the 10th Judicial Circuit, and the 10th Judicial Circuit is the largest circuit in the state of Alabama, and because it's so large, it's broken up into divisions, and so there's territorial divisions, the Birmingham and the Bessemer cutoff, as we refer to as the Bessemer cutoff, so it all depends upon where your case arises. So if your case arises within the Bessemer territorial bounds, then it's going to be filed in the Bessemer division. However, if it occurs in the Birmingham territorial bounds, it will be filed in the Birmingham division. And so there's a map that kind of shows the divide of Jefferson County. So all of your western Jefferson County cities are in the Bessemer cutoff. So Fairfield, Midfield, Western Hoover, McCalla, Bessemer, all the way over to the Tuscaloosa line. Those are within the Bessemer territorial bounds. And so they will be filed in the Bessemer division. But we're all part of the 10th Judicial Circuit.
That's right. And a lot of times, as a lawyer that practices some cases in Jefferson County, I'm working with my investigator, for example, in an accident case to figure out, hey, is this over the Bessemer line? Is it in the city of Birmingham? Is it Jefferson County? Is it Bessemer? And we're trying to make sure, like sometimes we even make mistakes because we may not assess the lines correctly. The judges will let us know that, but ultimately we're trying to make that decision. I tell you, one thing I want to talk about when we get back from break. Judge has been on the bench for about 9 years, 2 terms. I want to talk about what it's like to be a juror and how Judge interacts with jurors, because that will impact everybody watching right now. We're all going to get called to jury duty at one point or another, and it's a great civic service that you can provide in our county. And I want to talk a little bit about that and how the judges work with the jurors.
We are right here on the same line of thought right there, because that's exactly what I wanted to talk about as well. So still ahead, we'll talk about jury trials and your rights if you were actually called to serve on a jury, what to expect when you walk into that courtroom. But before we go, we want to remind you that you can call an attorney at Hollis Wright right now. Dial 1-844-LAW-TALK for a free confidential consultation with one of the lawyers there. They're standing by. Also want to remind you about all of the social media sites. You can go on those sites and watch Hollis Wright throughout the week, 24/7 on X, on Facebook, on YouTube. We are there on Instagram as well. So stick around. We'll be back as we talk with Judge Reginald Jeter here on The Attorneys. Stay with us.
Here's some good information from our firm to you. Hollis Wright recently launched the Law Talk podcast. With podcasts becoming so popular, this will be a simple way to provide our loyal viewers with more opportunities to access information about important legal topics and to learn more about our firm and how we can help you if the need ever arises. There are many ways to access the Law Talk podcast. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Also, episodes are always available on the Hollis Wright YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just search up Hollis Wright in the Law Talk podcast. Don't wait, take advantage and listen today. Thanks for watching The Attorneys, and we know you'll enjoy the Law Talk podcast.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas, such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law, such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Addiction kills hope.
But at Bradford, it all changes here.
Experience the difference
that proven treatment can make.
Find recovery. Find community.
at Bradford.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
And welcome back to The Attorneys. I'm Mark Franklin. We are talking to Judge Reginald Judge Reginald Jeter, who Street is also a friend of ours in the court. But we said we wanted to talk about jury trials when we get back. What are your responsibilities, your rights, and when you come back, what you should expect when you get inside that courtroom?
Yeah, more than anything, lay out just a little bit about when someone gets called to jury duty, the number of calls I get, and I'm sure you get too, from people saying, hey, I got called to jury duty, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Can you kind of walk them through that process? Because I think people think that is some type of intimidating process. Right. The reality is it's just part of your civic duty that you get to do. And I look at it as a positive that you get to see a different side. I've always wanted to be on a jury that made it to trial, to be able to see the other side of a jury from what I litigate on a daily basis.
Yes. Jury service is one of the greatest benefits that we have in our judicial system, because we have individuals who have disputes, who want to have their day in court, and they want to have someone who's fair and impartial listen to the evidence and come up with a decision. And that's where individuals or their peers come into play. So people always talk about the dreaded jury summons, and I always tell people, if you get a jury summons, please report, because we can't dispense justice and do our jobs unless we have people who are willing and able to serve as jurors. And it's not an intimidating process. Your summons will tell you where to report and what time to report to. We as judges try to make the process as seamless and efficient as possible. We want to respect your time because we know that you're busy and you have other personal obligations. So when you come to the courthouse, we already have that in mind. And so you're coming to the auditorium, and then we will send you to specific courtrooms. So each week we have jury weeks, certain jury weeks of the year. And so whatever a judge needs a jury, we divide those people that come for jury service and we send you to a courtroom. So you're in a smaller environment in a courtroom, and from there you will have the attorneys in the individual case. They will be involved in what we refer to as voir dire, where they get to ask you questions, and the questions are not to intimidate you or anything like that. It's just to simply make sure that we get the best jurors possible who are fair and impartial. And so that process, from there, we then weed it down to the 12 jurors that we would need for the jury for the jury service. And so again, the process is seamless, it's efficient, and it's one of the greatest civic duties that you have. And so I just implore you, if you do receive a jury summons, answer the call, because we need you.
And I get this question too sometimes. Someone will come home from jury service and I'll get a call or a text from someone that says, hey, I wasn't selected for a jury today. Do I report back? They should know that. But ultimately, if you weren't selected for a jury for one trial, you have the potential to be put back into the system that entire week and potentially be called for another trial, or you could be dismissed based on the judge's decision, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you just keep reporting and they tell you not until they tell you not.
Normally the judge will tell you your marching orders before you leave for the day. They will tell you if your jury service is done, and they'll thank you for your jury service, or they will tell you that another judge may need you, and so report back to the courthouse tomorrow.
Yeah.
Of course, I see that on, I've been to jury service before, but I see that on the lawyer side of things, and our firm does consistently. And I will tell you, our judges in Jefferson County and in Bessemer do a fabulous job of working people through the system and giving them information and an understanding of kind of what the process is. And so it's not intimidating. It is an important process. My job could not operate without juries. So
absolutely.
They're very important to us too.
Very, very important. It's been a long time since I've actually served on a jury. But the one time that I did, I got a chance to be the jury foreman, and it was, I think, a fascinating experience. But something else I think about when you walk into a courtroom, and as you want to know your rights, is this whole thing about just representing yourself. And that could be a legal landmine, can it?
It definitely can. I always, especially on the circuit civil level, because you're dealing with more complex issues, more complex cases, and just the rules of evidence and civil procedure that a pro se litigant may not be aware of. And unfortunately, as judges, we can't advise individuals about the law. And so therefore we have to uphold, we have to uphold the law. We have to treat you to the same standard as we do a representing individual. And so when you're dealing with those types of complex cases, it's very important that you have representation, because these individuals do these cases all the time, and so they know the ins and outs. And so if you have a viable claim, you want to make sure that that claim can get to the end and not be dismissed on a technicality or something that you didn't do correct on the front end.
And you got to think too, Judge and I both have been through the same process where we went through law school. We learned this process. We learned what you can and cannot do and what the technicalities are related to trying a case in law school. And then I've served 27 years as a lawyer in litigation doing this type of work. And I often tell people, sometimes I'll see someone that doesn't trust lawyers, and I respect that. I really do. I understand. But my comment to those people generally is, hey, look, you have to trust someone in this system. And why not trust a lawyer that can make sure you don't make a mistake that can impact your ability to be successful? Let me give you a simple example. We've done a ton of shows on uninsured motorist coverage and regular liability coverage if someone's involved in an accident and injured. If you make a simple mistake in working with an insurance company and accept money from one party and do not put the other party on notice and give them an opportunity to do what's called waive or subrogate and make a waiver decision, you have limited the amount of insurance you have access to. That's just one simple example. Judge and I could sit here for hours and talk about examples in court, in voir dire, in preparation, in motions in limine to get prepped for trial, where you could make a simple mistake that could catastrophically impact the result. Get representation. It's so important, so important. I know we're getting ready to go. I want to talk a little bit about the status of the judiciary itself when we come back from break, and just let Judge talk a little bit about kind of where we are with Bessemer, Jefferson County. I think we're in great shape with the judges we have and the heads of the court in Jefferson County, but I want to talk a little bit about that with the judge.
All right, we'll do that, and that's why you are watching this show, because this is where you get the legal information from. Also, you can call right now, 1-844-LAW-TALK. It's a free call, it's a confidential call, and it's one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright standing by live right now. So go ahead and do that, and make sure you continue to follow us on social media as well. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment as we continue here on The Attorneys.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK, and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
If this place could talk, it wouldn't. It would sing and celebrate all of our stories of addiction recovery, victory, and community. This is Bradford Health Services. It all changes here.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
Welcome back to The Attorneys. I want to remind you that at the bottom of your screen, you see some information scrolling there. We like to give you information on the topic that we're talking about throughout the show to keep you informed. And we are back with Judge Reginald Streeter as we continue with the show.
Jeter. You're used to Streeter. You guys must all be friends together.
We are
You
friends,
must all be friends.
And we all talked about it before we came in today.
That's
Judge
right.
Jeter was a good
I
friend
love
of
it.
ours.
I love it. Hey, Judge Jeter, talk to us just a little bit about where do you see the kind of the status of Jefferson County judges on the circuit in the criminal side, just kind of generally? Of course, I followed this thing in Jefferson County for 27 years. You've been around a long time too and served 2 terms. Where do you kind of see things right now?
The 10th Judicial Circuit is one of the greatest circuits. I'm kind of partial, but it's one of the greatest circuits in the state of Alabama. Our presiding judge, Judge Elizabeth French, our fearless leader, has done a great job of leading us, and so we are doing great things here in the 10th Judicial Circuit. Between the bench and the bar working together, we're just ensuring that cases are being moved, cases are being tried, we're disposing of cases. And so we have a great group of judges on the bench that work great with the attorneys here in Jefferson County. So I feel great about the direction of Jefferson County and the judicial system here.
I have always felt Jefferson County's done a really good job of allowing lawyers to litigate their case as impartial referees, if you will, through the process. We talked before we started today about just kind of how cases are resolving outside of court through mediation and through arbitration proceedings and whatnot. Do you feel like that's in a pretty good position right now? Because I do as a litigant. I feel like the mediation process and trial settings are allowing us to either resolve or try those cases pretty expeditiously.
I totally agree. And generally in our scheduling orders, most judges in Jefferson County are carving out the opportunity for parties to mediate their cases. And so I think that is very helpful because it gives the litigants the opportunity to go through discovery and then also have the time after they've gotten enough sufficient information to make informed decisions to go to mediation prior to trial. And just based upon my docket, I think it's been very helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of attorneys have thanked me for, allowing them the opportunity to mediate a case before it goes to trial. And I've been seeing cases, disposed of prior to trial because of that.
We have done shows on mediation. We've brought mediators on. We've brought arbitrators on to be able to discuss the process. A lot of clients don't realize that just because you file your case doesn't mean your case is guaranteed to try. There are processes all the way through from start of the filing to the time of trial and even during trial where there's an opportunity to potentially resolve your case. And the judges have done a really good job of putting in their orders requirements that the parties work together to determine whether or not a mediation, which is an out-of-court potential settlement negotiation, is going to be healthy and fruitful in the case. And sometimes the parties don't want to be the one that offers mediation, so having it in the order is not a bad thing, right? It helps.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good process so far.
I know we got about 2 minutes left in the show, but I wanted to find out, is there a time frame, a timeline of how civil cases make their way through the court system, a typical time?
Right, and as I mentioned earlier, we hear a large of different types of cases, and no case is the same. And so I think what we as judges do, we have a scheduling conference toward the beginning of the case, but not too early, where we talk to the attorneys and get their feedback about how long do you think it's going to take to do discovery, how long are you going to take to to do mediation or whatever, and then from there we then kind of craft a time period. So there can be anywhere between 12 to 18 months, on cases where there's not a lot of complex issues. But if you have a very complex case like a medical malpractice or products liability, those may take a little bit longer because you have to deal with experts, you have to deal with much more depositions. So you have multiple parties, you have to have it requires more, and so it may take a little bit longer. So it just depends upon the type of case.
Judge is exactly right, and something that Judge also deals with is there are circumstances in some of those complex cases, Art, where people have an automatic right to appeal an issue to the Alabama Supreme Court or to the Court of Civil Appeals related to immunity or some other issue that doesn't slow the case down because the judge is not pushing the case or the lawyers are not pushing the case. It slows it down because it goes to another court and then has to come back, and then there's advice given from the higher court to judge to be able to help finish and complete that case. So there are a lot of moving parts in this, but I feel like our system is operating pretty good.
We certainly learned a lot. Judge Reginald Jeter
there it is.
on this show with us.
We're bringing Judge Streeter on. Right. Your buddy. He's coming over, sure. Great job, by the way. You did a fabulous job. Thank you for being on.
To be here.
Thank you for being with us always. Of course, we got the great Josh Wright here. Thank you at home for joining us here on The Attorneys, and make sure you make an appointment to see us again next week, same place, same time, for another great show. So long. We'll see you back here next week.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.